The business world is unpredictable. Change is constant. How can we prepare for the unexpected and grow our businesses? Chuck Knabusch gives us a process from what he learned at the military and from working in manufacturing. Let's see what he has to say. Welcome to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Berus, and today we have, and you're going to have to help me, Chuck Knabusch. Knabusch. Okay, Chuck, thanks for correcting me. Knabusch. I love the name, too. It's unoriginal. So tell us a little bit. You have a lot of manufacturing experience, and I want to know a little bit about your manufacturing experience and how it's helped you help companies be more efficient.
In manufacturing, I learned it from lean manufacturing. It's all about defining the value from the customer's perspective. Because if the customer doesn't want it, doesn't want to pay for it, there's no value to the customer. So why would a manufacturing company do it? The second thing is, eliminate waste. Anything that doesn't add value is waste. And we can find waste, whether it's in paperwork, in administrative functions, or on the shop floor as they're making the product. And then finally, it's all about continuously improving. It's not to go ahead and find something perfect to deploy it at the very beginning, but to deploy something and then make it better each iteration, whether that's once a week, once a month, once a quarter, once a year, but continuously improve.
Do you have any ideas about how to determine if you're doing something that the client doesn't want?
I'm a big believer in setting expectations up front and having that conversation, trying to find out what is it the client is looking for. Now, sometimes the client doesn't know, but you need to have that conversation up front. A great example is my wife and I put in a pool recently. When we were talking with the pool contractor, we said, well, how long is it going to take? He said, I'm not going to be able to start today, tomorrow, the next day, because this was back when COVID was happening. He said, we understand that. But I said, once you start, how long should it take? He said, 6 weeks. 21 months later, we were swimming in it. So that's where expectations that we had tried to go ahead and set with that contractor and the reality were vastly different. And that's what you don't want to have happen, because that's when the customer gets upset. So having that conversation up front and saying, okay, this is it, or business conditions have changed as we've all seen through COVID, and having those conversations, communicating regularly and resetting, readjusting expectations as necessary.
Now, you also have extensive experience in the military. What did the military bring, like know-how that you've applied to the businesses?
They were big into planning. They would plan that exercise, they would practice an exercise, but also when they did it, things don't always go right, as we all know. So they would have the chance to think through, okay, if things go left here, or things go right here, or things change, how do we go ahead and work our way through it? So it's not just about the plan, and we have to follow the plan, but it's also about the contingency plans that happen on either side of the plan, so we can be agile and we can go ahead and adjust quickly to ever-changing conditions.
You also mentioned that while you were in the military, they practice, and they worked also different types of options that could happen so that when the crisis were to occur, everyone knew what to do. Is that correct?
Absolutely. A great example was, even out of the military, I was working for a company and we had a tornado hit a manufacturing plant that supplied 10 other plants. Without the cut plywood parts coming out of that plant, no plant would be able to make their final product for the consumers. We found out about this, on I think it was a Saturday evening, and already I was getting calls from employees, hey, do I have a job come Monday morning? Well, I said, I don't know. We had not done our planning. This was one of those times where you'll learn from your mistakes. But we put together a team very quickly, and by Tuesday, we already had a plan as to how to go forward. And we were able to take the 200 employees, farm them out to other operations. We rented like a similar plywood cutting operation Some of them were 20 miles away. Some of them were 500 miles away. But we rented them out during their off shifts and put our employees there. So our employees had a chance to go ahead and continue to provide for their families. We could still make parts and then ship them out to the plants that needed them to go ahead and make the final product for our consumers. And then after that, our company went through and said, look, it's time we need to do contingency planning on all sorts of things, very much like the military does. They have contingencies on top of contingencies on top of contingencies in case something goes wrong, because that way you've had the opportunity to think through what your alternatives are, what your choices are, and which might be your better or your worst choices, and the pros and cons of each one, while you have time to think it through rather than when you have to react immediately.
Very good point. Absolutely. So the military really takes steps back, thinks things out, plans things out according to the different options, which is a lot of what coaches do. They help their business leaders think things through. What are the different options? What are the different possibilities? What's their expectations? What they expect the returns to be? And what could get in the way? So
absolutely. I mean, they provide an outside perspective that you might not get otherwise because you're so into the situation that you're trying to work your way through that you don't always go ahead and see every different opportunity. And that's exactly what the value of coaches are, is to help with the, well, did you look at it from this perspective or did you see that perspective? And it gives that executive a chance to work through problems sometimes before they are problems.
Right, exactly. When you're less stressed and you have more brain power to think things through.
Absolutely.
So on another subject, you also deal with people that are too busy to be a better leader. So what kind of advice do you have for leaders that are too busy for many things, which I think is a recurrent problem?
Absolutely. I mean, life has gotten busier and busier. I mean, since the invention of email and instant messaging, we are just bombarded with information. And at some point in time, we have to go ahead and pull back and say, we need time to go ahead and recharge, whether it's recharging our batteries, rethinking about our business. We can't be working in the business so much that we don't work on the business. So my book gives a lot of different pointers as like emails, how to go ahead and write a better subject so we don't have to read absolutely every email immediately when it comes in. We talk about sometimes setting time aside and say, hey, when I was working for a large corporation, I would answer emails 3 times a day, 7 o'clock in the morning, at 11 o'clock later in the morning, and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Those are the only times that I would do email. The other times I may be in meetings, I may be out on the production floor. I'm doing something else because I wasn't going to be tied to my computer 24/7 just answering emails, which certainly could go ahead and happen.
So what other strategies do you advise in your book? And can you mention your book's name?
Yeah, I wrote a book last September called Hope is Not a Business Strategy.
I love the title.
Yeah, the title came out of, we used to do annual operating planning, and nobody likes to stop what you're doing because we've all been kind of programmed to be the firefighter, the person working, fighting the fires, out there on the front lines. But realistically, if we don't plan what we're going to go ahead and do, then we're just hoping to go ahead and achieve some sort of success. And hoping to achieve that type of success is not the way to achieve it. You need to go ahead and plan it. Whether it's working through and understanding what are the values of your organization, what's the vision, the purpose, the mission, whether you come up with a business plan, what do we want to achieve this quarter, next quarter, the quarter after? So that way we can compare to our performance when we're a little bit off. What adjustments do we need to make rather than just hoping that all of a sudden the stars will align and we'll go ahead and either perform or outperform what our expectations are.
Right. To be more strategic with your time, your thoughts, and your attention.
Absolutely.
So what have you found that are the biggest challenges for leaders?
Well, I mean, we have to understand that time is our only non-renewable resource. If we need more money, we can go ahead and trade time for money. We can get more money. We can get more of any other resource out there, no matter what you're using in your business or in your personal life. But time is the only resource that we have a very limited supply of, and we don't even know what that limit is generally until on your deathbed, hate to say it. So we need to go ahead and understand, if we want to go ahead and be about family, we need to take time for our family every day. We want to be about our business. We need to take time, not just working in the business, but to work on the business. How do we make improvements? How do we go ahead and be prepared for what the next set of business conditions that can be thrown at us? So that's kind of where the planning comes in.
So what do you suggest leaders concretely to set time to plan? Once a week, or, with their teams? Do you have that kind of granular
Absolutely.
advice?
I personally like to go ahead and plan my next day at about 8, 9 o'clock at night. I mean, everything's quieted down around the house. I spend 30 minutes on it because, again, we're only talking about a day. Once a week on Sunday, I like to go ahead and kind of plan out my week. What are my goals each day? What do I think is going to happen? Understand business conditions can change, and that's why I make adjustments every evening. I then go ahead like to plan once a month. What are my goals? Where am I going to go ahead? What balls am I going to move forward every month? And I do the same thing quarterly. And really, again, we're not spending hours and days on planning. We're spending 30 minutes a night, maybe an hour a week, because we kind of intuitively know what needs to go ahead and happen. Well, how do I make sure? I make a list. I say, okay, on Tuesday of next week, my objective is this, this, and this. And that way I can go ahead and say, okay, those are my highest priorities. Monday may come and it may change part of Tuesday's priorities a little bit, but I know what I need to go ahead and get done, and I prioritize it that way.
Right. Very good advice. And since we're near the new year, tell me anything specific for the new year advice.
Again, it's just create a plan. It may be even to go so far as to say, what's your vision for yourself? Companies have visions all the time. It may be a 5-year vision, it may be a 10-year vision, but why not create one for yourself? What do you want to see yourself at the end of the year? It may be having more time with family. It may be, I want to go ahead and succeed in however we define that at work. I want to take that next position. It may be, I want to grow my business by another 3%. Okay, now that we have the overall goal, how do we break that down into steps so we can go ahead and make progress quarterly, monthly, weekly, and potentially even daily, depending on the priority of that particular goal?
So what would you say are the biggest challenges you have seen in leaders recurringly?
Again, it's all about expectations. It's very easy to go ahead and assume that the people who report to you have a certain expectation of you. And how do you fulfill that expectation if you don't know what that is? Have that conversation. Communicate. I know in some cases we're kind of scared to reach out to people, but you'd be surprised how open they are. It may be telling the people who report to you, this is what you expect from them. These are the 3 things where they cannot cross the line. These are the 3 things that a little bit you have some negotiating room on, and these are the other 3 things. And ask them, what do they think? How would they go ahead and define that? What are their expectations of you? Because again, as a leader, you need to be removing obstacles from their way.
Absolutely. So where can people get a hold of you, Chuck? And where can they buy your book?
My book can be gotten at Amazon.com, or it can be at BarnesandNoble.com. Both of them carry it, both electronic and the physical form. I can be reached very easily at 1310.com, 13ten.com.
And of course, this will all be in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Chuck, for your good advice.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. You can subscribe to all future podcasts at excellentexecutivecoaching.com. Join us each Wednesday to learn more about the latest trends in leadership techniques and bring your coaching to the next level. To learn more about Dr. Burris's CEO Mastermind, use the contact form at excellentexecutivecoaching.com.